Hi, Greg.
Hello, Hugh and Jace.
Hi, Jace.
How you doing?
Good. This is May 5th. It's a full moon video. And tonight's topic is going to be the U.S. military didn't protect my federal licenses. Um, I own Bottomline Publishing in New York, and I have a federal license from Foley Federal Court for a very long time. And when I was a little kid, um, I'm gonna go over a few things. Um, This is my baby picture taken by George Towers at 19635 Rogue, Detroit, which is Eastman Kodak. And they even put a 4-4 on it. And this is before the Twin Towers were built. And then here's Alex Jones with the Gardner chalk drawing. He said that Twin Towers was an inside job. Um, he was right about that. Muslims didn't do it. America, Britain, Germany, France, and Israel did it. And this is the Gardner chalk drawing. And I know Willie Gardner, he down here, Willie Gardner. And he got it from Cook, and Cook is my cousin. And this came from Scotland, see, Central Scotland News Agency.
hmm
And I'm Scottish. And this is my Uncle Admiral Byrd of World War II. And then this is my dad, who was in the Navy in World War II with Kennedy. My dad's over here. And that's my cousin Claire Rose. And he piloted the Enterprise during the Vietnam War with Huey helicopters on it. And I'm Huey. And that would be my mother here. And then here's a contract for between me and Huey Squire and Bottomline Advertising for sending the clowns. And then here's my publishing license, Bottomline Advertising and Publishing, ASCAP. And then I was in the library all over the globe as Bottomline, see, Huey Francis Squire, Bottomline Advertising and Publishing, if you can read that. And this is all the way back in the 60s. And that was my bios in the library all over the globe. You could walk into any library and find my Bottomline Publishing Company and my federal licenses. And then this was a company called Dynamic Graphics. I would use their artwork to me, Huey Squire, Bottomline Advertising and Publishing. And this is Dynamic Graphics giving me permission to use their artwork on my albums, etc. And then here's my trademark applications, a trademark, and for Bottomline. And I did that through Weiner and Associates. And then we have, this is me at about 15 in high school. I'm playing the drums. And we won all the Battle of the Bands in Warren, Michigan, and at Central State College. And that was the same high school that Mitch Ryder went to. And eventually I became Mitch Ryder's publisher at ASCAP and BMI. And then this is me on the front page of the the Chicago Tribune. That's me right there. And this was as they murdered the Kennedys. And Kennedy was starting his speeches off to you Tribune publishers. And there's me on the front page of the Tribune, a publisher. And then here's to all publisher members, and this is from Morton Gould around 78, 79. And then here's my uncle Doug Mills with Bush on 9/11. The Mills family are my family. And as the first plane hit the first tower, Bush accidentally said my name. He said, Hugh's structures are collapsing. And he was talking about Americans in Israel destroying the receipts to my business in the Twin Towers. I asked Jim Mars when I was in Kentucky to look into my Social Security because the IRS stole my Social Security license about 100 times. And there's me with Jim Mars. And then after that meeting with Jim Mars, he started looking into my Social Security numbers for Bottomline, and then he mysteriously died. And when I talked to Judith Baker, she said that they killed him by giving him dialysis for his kidneys. And then at the same time he died, I was in a hospital because I had stopped in Kentucky after filing my wife's murder charges. And I stopped by Fort Knox and Rand Paul's governor's mansion, and an anesthesiologist punched Rand Paul. And Rand Paul's grandfather, Paul, had been my business manager at Bottomline back in the 60s. When I was in high school, and playing at this high school, Paul family was my business manager as I became a publisher and a composer at ASCAP and BMI. And the military never protected my federal license. It was stolen in every country on earth. And they even put up a Bottomline bar in Vietnam and in London. Then they started building Huey Square avenues in London and next to Albert Hall and all over the place. And I'm going to start a share now and go into a little more detail. This first picture is going to be this is a picture of the back of my neck. And here you see this. Can you see this red line here, Greg?
Yeah. Yes, I
and
can.
this one here.
Yeah.
I was in Walmart and somebody threw acid on the back of my neck. And my throat has been bleeding ever since. And on the day this was done, I was talking to a guy in Walmart and he walked out the door and somebody murdered him with a car. The other thing I wanted to point out is a woman hit me over the head with a fire axe when I was 1 year old. Can you see that scar on top of my head?
Sure can.
Yeah.
That was from a fire axe. She was using the fire axe to chop up my grand piano in my living room. And I was watching TV and the Korean War was on. I was 1 year old. It was about 1954. And they were showing dead Americans in the Korean War, and I was crying. And my twin was sitting next to me. And she was chopping up the piano, and she turned to me and she said, "You're next." And then I have no memories for 13 months because I was put into a coma by being hit over the head with a fire axe. So you can see I'm no stranger to people trying to kill me.
Yeah, this just happened with the neck thing.
Yeah, I'm still, my voice is hoarse. I just got my voice back today. It's been gone for quite a while.
Yeah, it was real bad last week.
And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to just go through some slides here. This is $300 for my membership dues, Bottomline Advertising and Publisher. This is my member number at ASCAP and BMI, 0005666. And you see it's made out to ASCAP 1 Lincoln Plaza, New York, New York, for $300. And then the next slide will be, it was cashed by Chase Manhattan Bank in New York. Chase Manhattan Bank, Brooklyn, New York. And this is right on Broadway. And see here. So I was a publisher. This is my dues check. See, my membership dues. And there's Chase Bank cashing it for ASCAP. You can see ASCAP stamp right here where my mouse is. And they put it into a special account. And then here is the entire lawyers bar in California stealing my business license, my federal business license. Bottomline, law practice management and technology. And here it is, California Bar. .california.gov, the Bottomline tables of contents. At that point, the military should have stepped in and protected my federal license, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And every lawyer in America and many lawyers worldwide have studied out of my stolen trademark and my stolen federal license, Bottomline, for over 55 years now. And the world gets people like Kamala Emhoff, who uses the name Harris, and from my stolen Bottomline federal license. She had to study to pass the bar and become a prosecutor. And her husband's an entertainment lawyer, and he had to pass the bar using my stolen federal license, Bottomline. And they used my IRS license and my name, Hugh Squire, all over the globe in every country on earth. And Obama and his wife, Michelle, were both lawyers who studied out of this same Bottomline table of contents, my stolen federal license. And back then, 55 years ago, the military was supposed to protect my license, and they didn't. And you can see that I already showed you. Admiral Byrd is my uncle, and the Navy runs and funds the CIA. And then when I got hit over the head by that woman with a fire axe, my twin was taken to San Francisco by a neighbor that woman called. And then I didn't see my twin again until I was 4 years old. And this happened when I was 1. I was unconscious for 13 months. So I woke up at 2, didn't see my twin until I was 4. On the first day of school, my twin was brought back to me by Mrs. Long, the principal of Hoover School. I lived on Hoover Street, and Hoover School was on Hughes and Hoover, and I'm Hugh. And my family owned Hughes Street. The family that owned Hughes Street took my identical twin to California. And then he was brought back from California with Camille Sirhan. So essentially, he was kidnapped from the woman who hit me over the head with an axe. And then on the day my twin was brought back by Mrs. Long, I was sitting with Wallace and Schultz, my teachers. And they handed me over to pedophiles who chained I and my twin to a post in a basement, a toilet. And they beat my twin to death. And that would have been Ed Osborne and Gary Osborne and Daryl Hall and Mrs. Long, Mrs. Wallace, Mrs. Schultz. And the world was just about to get the cartoon from Schultz, Peanuts, the cartoon, Linus and Lucy. And it's funny that Lucy became my mother-in-law. And Lucy was with Jimmy Hoffa when he disappeared. And none of these things are coincidence. That happened 20 years in my future after my twin was murdered, and then his body was dumped in a Pennsylvania field. And they recently named that kid, and I don't believe what they named him because I know he was my twin. You even looked into the book, Greg, and the book was dedicated to Mr. H, and I'm Hugh.
Mm-hmm.
Then I want everybody to know that here's the entire U.S. House of Representatives. Can you see this?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. Can you see it, Jace?
I can see it, but it's hard to read it. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll read it. It's to Mr. Huey Squire, Bottomline Advertising and Publishing in Madison Heights, Michigan. Dear Mr. Squire, thank you for your letter supporting United States adherence to the Berne Convention. And I was working in the 99th, 100th, and 101st sessions of Congress when we were changing the Berne Convention because cable TV and the airlines weren't paying people like Bob Seger and Kenny Rogers royalties. They were just using our movies and music, and because cable TV was new, there was no laws saying that they had to pay us for using our material, and they weren't. So we made it so that they would have to. And I was working with Ted Kennedy at that time. In '88, he was still alive. That was before they gave him and John McCain cancer. Here's Senate letters. This Senate letter is Arlen Specter, and he was the Judiciary, Appropriations, Veterans Affairs, and Intelligence Committee. Arlen Specter from Pennsylvania, and the same thing, Mr. Huey Squire. This is Bottomline, and he's talking about the Berne Convention that I was working in at the House and Senate with Ted Kennedy. And then here's Carl Levin in Michigan, where I lived, Mr. Huey Squire. And I contacted all the senators. They all knew me. Here's Dennis DeConcini in Arizona, April 11th, 1988. Bottomline Advertising and Publishing, Mr. Huey Squire. So I have all these Senate letters. And here's Donald Regal in Michigan in the Senate. And the same thing, Mr. Squire. Here's Doug Carl in the Senate, Lansing, Michigan. Here's Donald Trump's friend Bob Graham down in Florida. Bob Graham and Peter Graham lived down in Florida. They ran Channel 4 and WWJ in Michigan, where they hid my twin's murder and my kidnap when I was 4. And the woman that hit me over the head with the axe, she lied and said my older brother dropped me out of a wagon, but my older brother wasn't even home that day. He was 50 miles away with my grandfather on that day. That woman got away with trying to kill me. And then my twin disappeared, and there was never any police reports. Nobody ever tried to help me. And I was unconscious in the hospital for 13 months. So here's Senator Bob Graham to Huey Squire at my post office box in Michigan. And the Graham family hid my kidnap and the murder of my twin. And they hid the real murderers of all the Oakland County child killers with L. Brooks Patterson, who was out in front of the Osborne house the day I was kidnapped. And Brooks is my aunt, and L. Brooks Patterson is her family. When I was 17, I had told my best friend, his name was Oglesby, and that was L. Brooks Patterson's nephew. about my being kidnapped as his uncle sat outside and laughed at me as I was tortured and raped. And that uncle was L. Brooks Patterson. And that night he was put in L. Brooks Patterson's jail cell and hung in his belt. So I never saw that friend again after I told him about Patterson watching me be raped. Then here's this same who's who in advertising. And my dues check here. And it said Squire Huey Francis, art director, Wayne, Michigan, July 4th, 1953, my birth date, and my mother and father, Hubert and Dora Harris. And I was a student in Macomb County College and owner of Bottomline Advertising and Publishing in Warren, Michigan. Since 1965, I was a science and electronics teacher in Warren Consolidated. Jim Garrison was one of my alumni. And then two of my wives were murdered on the Manning Ranch. Manning and Garrison co-created the JFK archives, which are a lie. And they and CBS murdered two of my wives on the Manning Civil War farm. And nobody's gone to jail, and the police in two cities. One sheriff told me it's not his fault, the government's corrupt, and didn't file a murder report on my wife Victoria and Terry Heath. And Terry Heath was murdered as Obama ran to be president with Biden. And she's the same family as Sarah Heath Palin. And Sarah Heath and John McCain were running against Obama. And they murdered two off-duty policemen, murdered Terry Heath on our farm, on that Civil War farm I bought for her. She told me 5 minutes before I found her murdered that she saw those policemen stalking her again. That's who's who in advertising, and I'm in every library on earth. And I had a federal publishing license. When you have a federal publishing license, and this is a close-up of that same thing, and I'll leave it up here for a minute. When you have a federal publishing license, the police don't police your license, the military does. And in my case, the military never showed up for my federal license, Bottomline Advertising and Publishing, and there's a reason for this. One of the presidents would have told them to stand down. And the president that would have done that would be Clinton and then Reagan. And prior to that, Nixon. And then on 9/11, George Bush, he slipped and said my name and said my structures are collapsing when they destroyed the receipts to my publishing company. And this was no small theft. I had 28,000 entertainment contracts with ASCAP and BMI, and it was worldwide. And I'm going to end that share here. And then I'm back. And then you can see here's Canada, Performing Rights Organization of Canada. Write to me, Hugh Squire, Bottomline Advertising and Publishing. And I was publishing things in every country on earth as Americans in Israel stole my trademark, Bottomline, with DuPont and Milky the Clown, Claire Cummins. And I'm the Fuller family. My family made the Fuller transmissions and semis, and the Cummins family put the engines in semis. And Claire Cummins went to work for DuPont, and instantly the next day, 2,500 American corporations stole my trademark and my federal publishing license. And then they used it at the WWF, which was another stolen trademark. And then the attorney I had hired to look into Bottomline and protecting the trademark, Weiner, He ended up in New York, married to Aberdeen, and then he went to jail for showing his privates to little kids. At the same time, the Barr family that lived next door to me in Warren, Michigan, in Hazel Park, Michigan, actually, Oakland County, Michigan. I grew up with Roseanne Barr and Kathy O'Brien. And Roseanne Barr had a job with Osborne, who kidnapped and raped me and tortured me and murdered my twin, was Senator Graham's family, who owned Channel 4 and WWJ. And all of this is tied in with the chalk drawing that Alex Jones showed of my family. And lo and behold, here's 20 years after 9/11, there's Roseanne Barr with Alex Jones. And now she's doing shows on TV again. And her and Kathy O'Brien and Kathy O'Brien's father, Dr. O'Brien, was my friend.
Yeah, she was on Fox again lately too, Roseanne.
Yeah. And you know, Greg, that Fox is owned by London.
Mm-hmm.
And Washington gave my family his sword.
You were talking about Scotland, and I thought to mention that, but I didn't want to interrupt you there about Rupert Murdoch being from there too.
Yeah. Well, all these people are related, and it's the Masonic Temple. Mm-hmm. And then there's Wallace and Long, Schultz. There's another one. And Anderson. Osborne runs the FBI sex crime division to this day. And they're hiding me for 70 years. And they called off the military from protecting my IRS license worldwide and my federal entertainment contracts at ASCAP BMI worldwide, as they stole my trademark Bottomline worldwide. And the person who funded my high school in Warren, Michigan was Webster. And on the day that DuPont and Claire Cummins and the Detroit News Scripps Broadcasting took my trademark and put it on the front page of the Detroit News for 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And I was a Detroit News paper boy. And they probably thought they were helping me, but they were stealing my trademark with DuPont. And they used my trademark all over the globe. Mm-hmm. And then you got Huey Lewis and Billy Squier coming from 2 different countries. Huey Lewis came from France. Billy Squier came from Germany. They worked with gays. Huey Lewis's bass player lived in my neighborhood across the street from my father, the house I bought for my mother and father. And they took my name, Huey Squier, as they took my trademark Bottomline. And they did this in every country on earth. And it was $3 trillion in theft.
Yeah, Huey Lewis and the News was the whole name of it, right? And you were delivering, or
I was delivering the Detroit News. When I had my first paper out, it was called the Detroit Times. I had the largest Detroit newspaper route in Detroit. It was 2,000 customers. Mm-hmm. And on my paper route, I had people like J.C. Hurd, who was a famous jazz drummer who played with people like Ella Fitzgerald and Armstrong, Louis Armstrong. He was a black jazz drummer, and he was the best jazz drummer on earth back then. He was my friend. He was on my paper route. And he and I would meet where he worked, and we'd play drums together. And then I sold that part of my paper route to my little brother. And I kept the other half of the paper route that had people like Bill LeVice, Mitch Ryder, and Detroit Wills. And my oldest brother married his bass player, and they were writing the songs Elvis was singing in Vegas. And then I'm the Gardner family, and Ava Gardner was married to Sinatra. And when I got my publishing license, Ted Kennedy and Sinatra were part of that in New York. So my whole life has been stolen. And then they murdered my whole family 5 times. And we
Well,
made
they're not done stealing your trademark, because we're seeing Rupert Murdoch throw storyful claims, copyright claims on your YouTube videos, just
yeah,
like this.
whenever I make a video, Rupert Murdoch copyrights it. And you're putting the videos up and he's copywriting videos that you and I make here.
Yeah, they're still not done after all this time.
And the U.S. military should have been protecting my federal trademark 55 years ago. And they just failed to do so. Now, anybody else out there with a federal publishing license, the military would have stepped right in and helped them. They didn't help me. And it's because I've been being attacked from London and all the media. CNN is Anderson Cooper. Anderson kidnapped me. Cooper kidnapped my daughter at 7. I was kidnapped at 4 by Anderson. Then you have Wallace. Wallace is a journalist on NBC, ABC, I don't know. But
Mike Wallace, yes. I think CBS.
yeah, CBS. Well, CBS murdered my wife. Major Tom Garrett showed up and destroyed my online business. And that's the military that should have been protecting my federal publishing license. Major Tom Garrett, he didn't protect it. He helped murder my attorney and my wife. And he was right in Obama's White House. And he destroyed my income on the day my wife was murdered. I had an online computer business at eBay, which was doing very well. I was a top seller at eBay. And that's how I supported my wife in a wheelchair for 10 years. And he showed up. My attorney was murdered. My wife was dismembered and murdered. And my wife, I had to bury my wife missing her ears, and she was sodomized and her throat was slit Halloween Eve. And they put natural causes on the death certificate. As Walters at CBS, the Walters family, was my wife's advocate, and Walters' phone, her cell phone, was used to call me as they dismembered my wife in her hospital room. And the police in that town, they said, well, can't we just leave this murder up to God? And they never filed a murder report. And I hired an attorney weeks before, when I realized they sodomized my wife in the hospital, to file her murder charges on the day she died. And he was murdered that day too, the same day my wife was murdered. And his name was James Bauman. And in Michigan, his sister was my secretary. Her name is Janet Barclay, if she's still alive. And the military never stepped in to help me. The military helped murder my family. And not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5 times, they murdered my entire family. Mm. My uncle, Admiral Byrd, I already know that, and nobody else on earth knows this. Truman and Eisenhower murdered Byrd because he went to them and he knew they were selling illegal military equipment from World War II and getting drugs in return and putting them on the streets of America. And he went to Eisenhower when he was president and he confronted him, and the next day he was dead. And that next day is the day my father's hands got cut off, and I and my twin were kidnapped in 1957, very same day. So I don't think these things. And my mother was a nurse, and she told me Admiral Byrd was murdered. They tell you he died of a heart attack, but that's just like I showed you me with Jim Mars. There's no lie in this. Here's me in the hospital, and Jim Mars, after I handed him my IRS numbers for Bottomline, and he started looking into them, he was dead the next day. He was going to write my story, like Greg just did. So, what
Well,
a-
that would explain why George Bush said your name on 9/11.
he knew all this was going down, and he knew it because of the Clintons. And then when you look back in history, Greg, my mother's whole family was murdered on Clinton Road.
Right.
And then the world got Bill Clinton.
Mhm.
And then Hillary was taking enriched uranium off of my family's properties and selling it illegally in Ukraine.
Mhm.
You know this. This is history.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
All
never
these
got
wars go together.
She never got prosecuted for this.
Yeah.
And then Trump, I'm Harris Banks and Mellon. My one of my murdered wives is Mellon Banks. Chase is my cousin. Morgan is my cousin. Chase and Morgan Banks. And Trump borrowed money from all these banks and never paid a penny back. And then when he ran to be president, Deutsche Bank and Nazi Germany funded his presidency. They lent him $600 million. And you know as well as I do, Greg, Nazi Germany is my enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like London was my enemy in 1776.
Mhm.
And I'm part German. I'm a quarter German. My father was one half German. I'm 1/4 German.
That's why the Queen married the SS guard.
Right. And I'm a Nazi Jew, and I'm related via Admiral Byrd's heritage. I'm related to all the kings of Europe. I'm more of a king than the king they have in London right now.
Right.
Yep.
But I don't care to live in London. And you know this, Greg.
That's another
So
reason they had to attack
Jace,
you.
you were in the army.
Yeah. I was in the army for one contract.
Did you know of Graft and Paola and the military murdering people for money when you were in the military?
Well, there was certainly a lot of corruption and some things I can't really talk about that are almost common knowledge in regards to what they did with the pandemic. But as far as payola stuff, no, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, well, Major Tom Garrett. I lived at the Hemingway house, and Hemingway was a, a, a journalist in the Mexican American War, I believe. And he wrote Old Man in the Sea and books like that. And I lived right there at his house. And the people that took care of the house were my friends. And then I came back to Michigan, and Cherry escaped 2 off-duty policemen that kidnapped her out of her CPS office. She was protecting kids from the porno industry on the Great Lakes, the same people who kidnapped me in 57, still running a porno industry with the FBI. She was protecting a boy and a girl, and 2 off-duty policemen broke into her office in Wisconsin, Menominee, Wisconsin, kidnapped her and drove her across 5 state lines. She escaped them and called me and said, Hugh, you're the only guy on earth I trust. Help me. So I bought her a Civil War farm. The only problem is Mr. Manning set me up with the Civil War farm. And he did that so he could murder my wives, because they murdered 2 of my wives there. And CBS, Major Tom Garrett, helped them do it right from Obama's office. And Clinton was working with Obama and Biden. Well, Biden is now president, and he knows damn well Obama murdered 2 of my wives. He knows these things.
Mhm.
And now he's appointed Kamala Harris, who studied out of my stolen federal publishing license. The military should have protected my license, and they didn't. So Clinton and Obama and Biden, they called the military off and murdered my family again, hiding the theft of Bottomline. And what do you think about this, Greg?
I see the connections between the Queen and the Nazis and the London Throne and Rupert Murdoch and Fox News and the theft of the copyrights and how it all fits together. hand in glove, and why George Bush would have to say your name on 9/11, because that had to have been just completely overwhelming his mind at the time.
On the day Donald Trump appointed Barr as prosecutor in the United States, Attorney General of the United States, he went back to the White House and he said my trademark, Bottomline, right on the White House lawn. Remember that, Greg?
Yeah, yeah.
And then who was William Barr's father?
That was the guy who hired Epstein as a teacher originally.
Right. He gave him access to kids to sell to billionaires. And as I lived next door to the Barr family, who hid my kidnap and the murder of my twin, and everything to do with Epstein, Epstein became a teacher appointed by Barr as I became a teacher in Warren, Michigan at the age of 14. Very same day. And then L. Ron Hubbard tried to recruit me when I was 14 into Scientology before you got Welcome Back Cotter. And Mary Pat Cotter was my girlfriend at Warren High School. And all of this is the government covering up the murder of little kids in Oakland County and the 5 governors that really killed the Kennedy family. I'm right in the middle of 5 dead Kennedys. And then here's Kathy O'Brien, who is Roseanne Barr's best friend. My family member, Jimmy Hoffa, raised Chucky O'Brien in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
You understand this? So
yeah, a lot of people
me.
today, a lot
All
of
these
people listening aren't going to know who Chucky Bryan is. You might want to remind them real quick.
Chucky O'Brien was his stepson.
Right. And he took over the Teamsters.
On the day Hoffa, on the night Hoffa disappeared, my mother-in-law was with him. That was Louise from Schultz, when they murdered my twin 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
And Hoffa had just gone all the way to California and went on all the talk shows, come back to Michigan, he disappeared. And then the FBI detained me for his murder the next day. I was 19. I was 19 years old.
And said that he was the one they detained, right?
What's that?
And they said on the media that he was the one that they detained.
Who?
O'Brien.
They detained O'Brien a week later, but O'Brien didn't do it either.
Right.
You talked about Donald Trump earlier, German heritage. He's actually, his last name was Drumpf, Drumpf, and his grandfather came into a lot of that money, and some of that trickled down there too. But and then we also talked about Rupert Murdoch, and we also saw the firing of Tucker Carlson here, and Rupert Murdoch was the one behind that.
Well, I went to school with Tucker. Tucker was in my kindergarten class, not Tucker Carlson. Now listen to this. My family ran Ford Motor Company. They ran Henry Ford, old man Henry Ford, his mansion, and the Dearborn Museum. My Uncle Tony did that. And then my twin was brought back with Camille Sirhan in 1957. This is 11 years before they framed Sirhan for Bobby Kennedy's murder. And then go forward 20 years, the FBI detained me for Hoffa's murder because Lucy Schultz, who handed me over to the pedophiles who murdered my twin, Lucy introduced me to Whitey. Whitey sold me a car. I left where he sold me the car. The transmission fell out of the car. I junked it. So they told me I buried Hoffa in the car. And all of this goes back to the pedophiles who kidnapped me when I was 4 in 1957, who kidnapped my twin with Camille Sirhan. And Camille Sirhan is married to my cousin. On the day I was handed over to the pedophiles, Camille was crying. Sitting next to me, we were singing songs in front of the piano, saying the Pledge of Allegiance with our hand over our heart and all this stuff they taught us to do. She's crying, and I looked at her. I said, "Why are you crying?" And she goes, "I miss my mommy and daddy." I gave her a hug and I said, I miss my mommy and daddy too. Mrs. Long and Mrs. Wallace grabbed me by the ears, pulled me out of the classroom, and handed me over to Osborne and Darrell Hall. There's no lie in this. And she married my cousin.
Mhm.
My cousin's birthday is the same as mine, and he didn't go to the same school. She probably thought my cousin was me. And I was at their wedding. It was a 7-day Lebanese wedding. As Bobby Kennedy was murdered by Sirhan, they say, and that's a lie. Sirhan did not murder Bobby Kennedy. Even Bobby Kennedy's son knows that.
Yeah.
And Oswald did not murder JFK. Osborne did, his bunkmate, with four other governors. And I'm the truth of all of this.
Because we've been talking about this, Hugh. I think that's why he's running for president now.
Who is?
Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah, but he won't win. His own family won't stand behind him
Mhm.
because he has too many associations with that group Q. And then if you remember, I owned the Q-Bert game
Mhm.
way back in 59, 60. I owned the Q-Bert game. That was the first video game in all the lounges and bowling alleys, the Q-Bert game. Campbell gave me that. A guy by the name of Pat Campbell with Sulik. And Sulik became Wood, and on the day he changed his name to Wood, Natalie Wood was murdered. I'm all kinds of history, Jace. And they hide me behind murders. And they just tried to kill me again. This on my neck. Let me bring up that share again. I mean, really look at this.
We know you have cancer before because you said that's how you'd lost your hair, and then I thought that this one here had given you cancer again or something, but I know it's bad.
Really look. No, I just got a test. This is a test from the hospital. You probably can't read it, but it's from the hospital. And they want me to do a cancer test. And then at the same time I received that, they murdered a guy I was talking to. And somebody poured acid on the back of my neck, and my throat's been bleeding for 2 weeks. They're trying to murder me again. They want to get me in a hospital so they can say I died in surgery or something. But really look at the back of my neck.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing wrong with me until I walked into that Walmart where they murdered that guy.
Yeah, you were talking to the guy in the pharmacy. He goes outside in the parking lot and gets hit by a car.
Right.
That's amazing.
And
And
then
that's sad.
the woman that hit him, she's 53, and that's the year I was born. And her name is Tanya, and Tanya was married to, that was my brother-in-law who ran Fort Knox. That was his girlfriend, Tanya. And Tanya's mother worked with my father, and her last name is Allen. And Alan was Bill Gates' partner, and I worked with Alan at Christensen when we built the Guidestones. And I used to go with Cronin, and Cronin was interfacing the first computers with TV because my father-in-law, Joe Jacob, gave him the software to do that at my wedding to his daughter, Nancy Fredericks. And then Nancy's previous father was mayor of East Detroit. So I'm no stranger to politics, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see this scar on top of my head. I was hit over the head with a fire axe.
You have another dent from a hammer too, don't you?
Yeah, I got hit over the head with a hammer also. Do you think I'm crazy, Greg?
No.
And I got a good memory, don't I?
And calculator-like skills too.
Yeah, I know.
And
I taught science and
art
electronics.
skills and music skills.
Yeah, I play piano, guitar, drums. There's nothing wrong with my mind, but people all my life tried to kill me. And this on the back of my neck, they just tried to kill me again.
Mhm.
They want to get me into a hospital with cancer so they can kill me during an operation. And this is how they murdered my wives.
Mhm.
I delivered my wives after finding them murdered 2 hospitals, and then they murdered my wives a second time in the hospitals. And CBS and the Walters family helped them do it. And I don't think it, I know it. Major Tom Garrett was sending me computers and then buying computers back from me for Obama and Clinton's White House. And on the day my wife's ears were cut off and her throat was slit, he destroyed my online business with a lie,
Mhm.
complete lie. He sent me back 3 computers and said they didn't work and there was absolutely nothing wrong with them. I didn't send back the hard drives that had Clinton's emails on them. He got mad and he wanted the original hard drives from the FBI back, and I didn't give them back to him. And there's a reason I didn't give them back. They were stolen out of my house. I had 12 break-ins, and every time my house was broken into, they stole hard drives.
Mhm.
They were trying to get Clinton's emails back from my home
Mhm.
in Tennessee on that Civil War ranch where they murdered 2 of my wives. And Major Tom Garrett helped them do it. Instead of protecting my federal publishing license and my federal trademark and my patents, my family owned the patents on buses, milk trucks, vans, the Fuller transmission. Instead of helping me with federal licenses, they murdered my family 5 times for money. And the military helped them do it.
Mhm.
So did the presidents. And all 3 parties are corrupt. And I can say this in all honesty, Greg.
Mhm.
Bush is corrupt because he said my name on 9/11. He also said that my friend I was publishing, who was a Christian, paid for the Muslims to be trained by my other friends down in Florida, the Walsh family. And my girlfriend put Bush in the school he was in. And then my uncle was filming him as the first plane hit the first tower. I know I'm the truth. Nobody else does because they hide me in all media. And all our media is owned by London.
Mhm.
And they've been attacking my family since 1776. Do you know who they have in the paper now? If you Google Clara Harris, you know what you come up with, Greg?
No, I don't.
Do it right now. Google. You got your computer on?
Yeah.
I can go ahead and try it too, real quick. Hold on.
Google Clara Harris.
Give me just a moment here. I gotta bring it up.
A former dentist
Hmm. She
convicted
murdered
of
a guy.
hitting and killing her husband David with her
Murdered a
car.
guy, ran him over, right? And
Oh
this
my
is how they hide
gosh.
me. You see, this is brand new, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, yeah, because I recently
Yeah. So they
yeah,
buried the history of Clara Harris being Lincoln's guest.
yeah. And now that does come up also, but the first thing that comes up is this former
You get
Texas
you get
dentist.
500 stories about Clara Harris killing her husband.
Hmm.
And she's a dentist. And you know how my grandfather, Mr. Harris, died?
That's right. In a dentist chair.
In a dentist chair.
It's unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
Soon
They
as
just
they
make
said,
up stories, man. This is crazy.
yeah, or they bring one story that happened to the light and really push it, one or the
And
other.
I own Baker College at birth. It's on Hughes Street in Warren, Michigan, Hazel Park, Michigan. And
Wow.
they
That's
changed Baker, Baker, to 2 Ks.
yeah.
And every time I do a video, they start changing the news. And me,
Mhm.
I and Greg have been watching them. But we've been watching them do it for what, 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, I keep seeing them do this over and over, and it just blows my mind every time.
Looks like she had twins as well.
So, Jace, what do you think about the military instead of protecting my federal license, helping to steal it and murdering
Well,
my
I had my
family?
suspicions about the military going into it. I knew it was corrupt, and of course, with the stuff that I dealt with too, where they tried to force me to get, you know what, I don't want to get that censored off YouTube, but you know what I'm talking about, and I was against that. I have no faith in the military at all to protect anyone. Really, I hate to say it, but it's a misguided
They have
notion.
a black market. You're aware of the black market in the military selling guns.
Well, you talked about people selling military equipment for drugs with former presidents. Now we're seeing it with Biden and selling a lot of the stuff that was in Afghanistan,
Right.
you know, with Ukraine and stuff like that.
Back when they murdered Byrd, it was World War II equipment they were selling. And this
Yeah,
has
they've
been
been at
going
this for a
on.
long time.
Yeah, this has been
It's
going on
nothing new.
forever. And it's
Spanish
always the
American War, they were
senators.
doing this.
It's always the senators and the presidents that murdered my family behind it.
Hmm.
And my family founded the country. So I'm not a real happy camper. And that's why I make these videos. And that's why they do things like try to murder me. They tried to, the inside of my throat is still bleeding right now. And here's my cancer test. So if I take the cancer test, I'll fail it because they poured acid on the back of my neck.
So what are you going to do? You're just not going to go back in?
I'm not going to take the test. I'm not
I
going to
wouldn't
sign
either.
myself into the hospital when I know my throat's bleeding from acid they poured on the back of my neck.
Right.
And then I tried to get an antibiotic because I got an infection from it. I got a fever right now. I'm sweating.
Yeah.
And I went to 5 doctors and nobody will give me an antibiotic.
I know that blows my mind because like everybody gets an antibiotic when they go to the doctor and they just
Not
will
me.
not give it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had an antibiotic in over 10 years, Craig. They won't give me one.
Yeah. That's just,
It makes no sense. They're trying
no.
to kill me here. They put down in my hospital records that I'm having heart attacks.
Mhm.
They keep saying I'm having arrhythmia. They've done 6 EKGs on me. No heart attack.
Right.
It's cost me a couple of grand for them to do 6 EKGs, and I'm retired.
Mhm.
And they keep putting in my hospital records that I have heart problems when I don't. And then they put in my records. I live in cattle country and horse country here, so tetanus is real prevalent.
Mhm.
They said they gave me my 10-year tetanus shot, and they didn't.
Right.
And a
They
doctor,
charged you for it. Yeah.
yeah, and a doctor and 2 nurses did this. And then they put down on my hospital records they gave me a 10-year tetanus shot, and they didn't. And you know yourself, you get a tetanus shot, it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Oh,
know.
yeah.
You know, I didn't get one. And I complained, and then the nurse come and told me to look the other way. I looked the other way, and I still didn't get one. They lied.
Mhm.
A doctor lied to me, and then a nurse lied to me. And then they keep trying to tell me I'm having a heart attack, but the EKGs don't show me a heart attack. And I take no pills. All I wanted was a antibiotic for my throat. My throat really hurts. It's infected, and they won't give me an antibiotic.
What scares me is them profiling the man that you talked to in Walmart and running him over like that and everything, and had it all planned out with the names and everything. I mean, that's scary.
Mhm.
That's my life. My whole life has been like that, Jace.
I know. It's just another day. I hate to say
Okay.
it, and I
I don't know if you
Dozens
can
and dozens
see.
of times.
I got hit with a head with a hammer right here. I got a great big scar. A guy hit me over the
Left
head.
for dead. Yeah. Mm.
No, I turned around, wanted to fight, Greg, and drove my semi to a hospital and got treated. But it took me a year to get back on my feet after that.
Oh, I was under the impression you just fell over and it took you a while to regain
No,
consciousness.
I turned around and beat his ass.
Oh, you didn't tell me that
can't say
part.
I fault
Okay.
you.
That's interesting.
I was a lot younger. I can't do that no more.
Right.
And
Um,
now they're trying to stab me in the back again. And people come to me all the time. They want to be my friend, and all they want to be my friend so they can steal money from me.
but you know, just like they changed Clara Harris's story there online, all of a sudden you got a new Clara Harris because you've been talking about her. when you started talking about the boy in the box, all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, they
They
found
ident-
they found the boy in the box since
after 50 years,
1957.
after
It's
55 years,
unbelievable.
they
Yeah,
identified him. Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
You
Well,
start,
the funny thing is, this happened on July 24th of 2002. That's way back when I graduated high school. Now you're seeing in the news here in 2023. That's interesting.
And then
we're sending
Greg,
letters to Bobby Kennedy, and all of a sudden
when
he's
you
running for
realize,
president.
Greg, when you're me and you realize that police were hired to murder my family 5 times, the government hired police as hitmen.
Yeah.
They hired an entire hospital staff to murder Terry and Vicky.
Mm-hmm.
There's no lie in this. So doctors and police, some of them are hitmen for hire.
Yeah, the day you move out where you're at now, they kill a taxi driver, Huey Houston, the day you arrive. It's
Right,
like,
the day I
I mean,
arrived.
this stuff never ends.
You know what they're doing now? You know that little detective who was a dwarf?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Danny DeVito, Taxi, and they
Yeah.
murdered Huey Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brother Michael raped my wife in front of our kids, my wife to be. We were supposed to get married. He raped her in front of 5 kids. We didn't get married. We went our separate ways. I put him in a nut house. Now you got Danny DeVito from Taxi doing Jersey Mike's,
Mm-hmm.
a sub above. And then who did Rusty kill? He killed Brian Baldwin, who was a lifer in the Navy. So you got Danny DeVito doing commercials for Jersey Mike's, which is the detective I walked in on having sex with my wife in front of our daughter 2 days after we got married. And then my brother Mike. And who's in Jersey? My
Right there where
cousin,
they're, right
cousin,
there where they're claiming they're taking Hoffa now. And it's
yeah,
unreal.
and my cousin Christie is governor there,
Right.
running to be president.
Mm-hmm.
You see, this stuff never stops in my life, Greg. So every day I turn on the TV and I see Danny DeVito, the little dwarf from Taxi, at Jersey Mike's saying it's a sub above.
Mm-hmm.
And then all my wives, they're even Kat, her father was on submarines in the Navy. My father's submarines in the Navy. Victoria's father, submarines in the Navy. All my murdered family members, submarines in the Navy.
Yeah.
You got the picture? And Danny DeVito, he becomes a millionaire making fun of raping my family members before they murder them.
And I won't name
Sad.
him this time, but then we start seeing all the Hughes
I'll
on
name him.
TV
Danny
and movies
DeVito.
too. It's unreal.
Danny DeVito is becoming a millionaire making commercials for Jersey Mike's,
Mm-hmm.
making fun of my life after they raped my kid, my wife, and my fiance. And then they murdered them. He's becoming a millionaire doing this in Jersey Mike's commercials.
Yeah.
There's no lie in this, Greg. I wish he would take me to court. He won't.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing too, and it's sick. It's just
He knows
outlandish what
exactly
people
what
will
he's
do for
doing.
money.
He knows exactly what he's doing. And the only reason he's an actor on Taxi is because of the detective in Warren, Michigan, who did not protect me. I had 2 people try to murder me, and instead of protecting me, he raped my wife in front of my daughter.
And look how
Mm.
many times you called out Daryl Hall by name, but he never sues you over it either.
None of them will ever take me to court. Look at Osborne.
Right.
Osborne runs the FBI. Take me to court. Everything I say, it's truth, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all afraid of me. Your presidents are afraid of me, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Biden. He gave you Jackson. I'm the Jackson family. Supreme Court Justice Jackson. He gave you Kamala Harris. Like
Yeah.
it's my family. And then Clara Harris kills a guy. And she's a
Mhm.
dentist. A dentist murdered my grandfather, Mr. Harris. You understand this, Greg?
Yes. Yeah. Clearly.
And this is Biden and Obama doing all of this. as they all studied out of my stolen federal licenses from Foley Federal Court. And they told you after 9/11, Mr. Foley was beheaded. No, he wasn't. This is all made up BS news from London, giving payola to U.S. senators and presidents.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still hidden. How can I be hidden when I'm the first guy the FBI detained for Hoffa's murder?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't even make sense. And then I'm a publisher on the front page of the Tribune. I mean, it's right here. This is the front page of the Chicago Tribune. I'm a publisher on the front page as John F. Kennedy starts his speeches off to you Tribune publishers. He's talking right to me. He was dead 10 minutes later, but I don't exist. It's just unbelievable. What am I supposed to do, Jace?
Well, I'm trying to find stuff about Bottomline banned off of Google. I'm trying to see where it brings me to.
Oh, I tried. Dave erased it.
You can't. I'm nowhere. Here I am on the front page of the Chicago Tribune.
He's got pictures of him as a kid
Here
with the word
I
bottom
am
line
playing
behind
at
him.
my high school. I played at Central and Michigan State at the football field in front of 10,000 people at a time.
But while you were
for-
9 or 10 years old, you were playing a guitar and you had the name Bottom Line on a sign behind you on the wall that
I
you had
don't-
handwritten because you were
and
already
I
thinking
don't,
about
I
the name.
don't exist. I don't exist.
Now
Hulk
there's somebody else that stole it, and they're a country variety band from South Texas, playing together since they were kids, called the Bottomline
See,
Band.
isn't that unbelievable? That is so illegal. It's not funny.
They may not even know it, honestly. They may not even know, but
Possible.
it's possible. But either
There's
way,
there's a band in Hawaii took my name Bottomline 10 years after I created the name.
And watch the news. You will not see. You'll see Fox News with the Bottom Line segment, NBC with the Bottom Line segment, and they all call it Bottom Line.
Yeah,
It's like
and-
they're all.
and-
How is that even possible?
Jace, when I started playing here in the high school,
hmm
I was playing with Mitch Ryder and Detroit Wheels in his backyard. I was playing with not Mitch Ryder, Bob Seger, Sticks in studios. And I don't exist.
do you have any content saved anywhere?
No. I got 2 songs left over, and the rest of my band, they're all dead.
Yeah.
And they were all in the military. They were just like you. One of my lead guitar player was stationed in Germany, just like you were.
hmm
His name was Keith Kowalski. He was over there for 4 years. He tried to go to Vietnam. They wouldn't let him. They put him in Germany.
And then Harry Potter
And
makes
Tony de
Squ-
Blasio. He
Squire
went to
Kowalski.
Tony de Blasi, my bass player. He went to Vietnam. He got decorated twice. He died, and a Russian man took his name in Brooklyn, where he was born, and became mayor of behind Giuliani. A Russian man, mafia. And Tony was Italian. He wasn't Russian. My life is on.
Yeah,
Jace,
that's when they created Bottom
My
Line
life
Bar.
is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Jace, just the fact that I have a federal publishing license, the military is supposed to back it, and they don't.
Now here's something you should still be able to find, Jace. I've been able to find it on there. Look up Bottom Line Bar with Pepper and Snadowski in New York City. That bar was formed, and a lot of the musicians got their start there after they stole.
They have
the name.
bottom line bars in every country on earth where all the rock and roll musicians got their starts, and that's my stolen trademark and my stolen federal publishing license.
Yeah.
There's no lie in this. This picture.
Yeah, there's a lot of bars. I see them now on a search.
This
I mean,
is from 1960, Chase. And there's people all over the country now. They say, oh, well, we were using Bottom Line back in 1940, and this is all lies. It wasn't in a dictionary. I made it a trademark. They disappeared the trademark.
Yeah, I'm seeing it all over. I mean,
It's the 2,500 corporations all started using it on the same day when they
right.
stole it. When they stole it from me, DuPont painted the buses, the milk trucks, the vans. Claire Cummins worked at Divco where my father worked. He went to work for DuPont. They stole my trademark and they created a WWF. On the day they stole the WWF, they stole Bottomline trademark from me. There's no lie in this.
There's a bottom line in Clinton, Maryland. Go figure.
I sent you the names on the chat box there, the Pepper and Snedowski. That's how you spell it. Those are the two that started the big bottom line
And
bar
then,
there in New
and
York.
then who died next door to me? And they renamed the Robin Williams Bridge, the Waldo Bridge,
Yeah.
Waldo Pepper. I mean, really think about this, Greg.
Yeah, Waldo Pepper. Yeah. Yeah, we made a video about that a long time ago.
And then Stanley Snedowski, that's my older brother who stole my inheritance, Stanley. We called him Stosh. He's not my real brother. And then think about this, Jace. My mother, she told me, I know my firstborn son and my sister stole your inheritance. And this was at midnight. I was on the front porch of the house I bought for her and my father, talking to her. We had just buried my dad that morning. We're alone. She says, well, on Monday, I'm gonna leave you my inheritance because I know my sisters and my brother, or my firstborn son, stole your inheritance. I got 5 hours out of Michigan. She was dead.
Mm.
And there was
Wow.
nothing wrong with her. You got that picture? I was going back to Tennessee to take care of my wife in a wheelchair. I told my mother I'll be back in a month to look in on you. And she was dead 5 hours later. And then my little sisters and my brother say that my little sisters were there and they weren't. It was midnight. And my mother didn't even like my sisters. She told me they were trying to kill her years prior to that. So she says she's going to leave me her inheritance, and I'm gone 5 hours and she's dead. She was murdered, but I don't know which one of them murdered her. Because as soon as they heard she was going to leave her inheritance to me, they wanted it.
That's all they cared about. It's unreal.
Yeah, I see bottom line here. It was started in 1975 by Snedowski and Alan Pepper. And I
Yeah.
think it was New York.
That's 25 years after this photo, Chase.
Okay.
And I'm bottom line here. It's bottom line.
So you had it first. I mean, that's what that shows right there.
This picture here on the front cover of the Chicago Tribune, earlier than that.
And think about this. Do you know what 75 is, Jace?
No, but I know you're going to tell me. I should know.
That's the year that Jimmy Hoffa died. That's not a coincidence.
Okay. Yeah.
And just right down from that bar, I looked this up one time, from the Bottomline bar in New York. That's the Barclay Center too.
Oh, okay.
That was the
my
secretary was
Janet Barclay.
Janet Barclay.
Yeah.
And isn't that where the Brooklyn Nets play now? Is the Barclay Center?
Janet
Sounds
Barclay's father. Listen, Jace. Janet Barclay's father was Maxwell, and you got Maxwell Ghislaine Epstein. Maxwell GH is Lane, and G is George Little at the Pentagon.
Huh.
And I bought him the vet he drove around in. No lie in this.
Well, didn't Greg just talk about how Attorney General Barr was on the list to go out at Epstein Island? Or am I wrong on that?
Well, no, Barr's father appointed Barr's father gave Epstein his job
back in the
in
70s.
The school system in Manhattan he worked in.
Yeah, Attorney General Barr's dad gave Epstein his job as a teacher back in the 70s. He's the one that got him started.
Right.
Now that's how corrupt that Trump actually is, because he hired Barr to hide his connection with Epstein, among other things.
And then Barr and Trump act like they're fighting and they're best buddies.
Yeah, yeah, going way back.
Yeah, I can't stand AG Barr. I think he is one of the most evil, corrupt men. Now I'm looking at this article and it says Springsteen became legendary at the Bottomline bar
Yeah,
in
20 years
1975.
after 20 years after I made it my trademark. Chase.
Yeah.
I'm 70. I was playing music the day I got hit over the head with the fire axe. My mother would sit me at the piano and teach me to play piano when I was 1. And she'd been doing that since the day I was born.
It wasn't just Springsteen; it was everybody. It was Eric Clapton, Dolly
All of
Parton,
them.
the
And
Ramones,
here,
the Police.
listen, Jace, my little sister, her son is Eric Baldwin. Think about
You know,
Alec Baldwin.
this may not even be related at all, but I know in Florida they're trying to push. It's called Eric. They're trying to push the voting machines out there, and nobody wants it. And now they got the woman's. They're suing her because she's trying to push this Eric system for the voting machines to fix all our elections. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I just noticed when you said Eric, that's what popped in my mind.
Eric is my nephew, Baldwin. And then you think of Alec Baldwin, he got his start on Hugh. And I'm Hugh, and my mother with Hoffa is Lou.
Oh wow, I never put that together. Yeah,
Oh, I
or
did.
Huey Lewis.
I did
Yeah.
because Hulu didn't exist until the internet and computers. And my father gave Gates the software to make his first computer. Lou's family is Cook and Perry of Apple. This is the kind of history I am.
And this is why Halls handed Alec Baldwin on the set of Rust a loaded gun that went off and shot Helena Hudgens, HH.
And Rusty Hawthorne
Thank you.
called me and told me he murdered Brian Baldwin, who was a lifer in the Navy on nuclear subs. And now you have the little dwarf on Taxi, Danny DeVito, talking about Jersey Mike's. And Danny DeVito looks just like the cop that was supposed to protect me. I walked in having sex with my wife 2 days after I married her in front of my daughter.
There was the latest news on Baldwin, and I missed it. I don't know if he was found guilty or innocent of that, but I know
No,
we
they
talked about
dropped all the
before.
charges. They dropped all the charges.
That's what I thought I saw, and we talked about that previously on a show. How you said he was actually innocent because he didn't really know he was handed a loaded gun.
Back in 1964, I saved Sue Baldwin's life. I'm not lying this. Sue Baldwin went to junior high and high school with me. And a group of bikers were going to beat her up and gangbang her. And I beat up the bikers because Sue was my friend. I and Sue Baldwin and Carmela Fox, we would all go home with Sandra Locke and we do our homework together from school. And we did this every night. And then think about Fox News, Carmela Fox. Fox News didn't exist yet. Carmela Fox was an Indian girl. Then think about the fire department and Locke fire extinguishers. Sandra Locke and Sue Baldwin and Carmela Fox were all my girlfriends in school. They were my friends. You understand this, Chase?
I'm starting to. It's a lot to take in, but yeah.
Well, Clint Eastwood, he married Sandra Locke, who was my girlfriend, in Carmel, as I and Sandra Locke did our homework in Carmela Fox's home. And there's no lie in this. This is how I'm marked by all of Hollywood. There's no lie in this, none at all. And I'm marked. Every little facet of my life is marked like that because they stole my federal licenses And the military is supposed to back me, and they never did.
Yeah, and then Osborne married what was her name?
Oh,
That
Sharon Osbourne.
Sharon, yeah.
Sharon Collins is her real name. And Sharon Collins was my girlfriend, Chase. Sharon Collins asked me to marry her twice.
Remember, Osborne's his rapist through the
And then
4-year-old.
and then they gave you Ozzy Osbourne on the radio, and I had to listen to my rapist family my whole life while they took me off the radio and stole my name and trademark all over the globe.
And then
Wow.
married a girl by the same name.
London did all of this.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
London and Israel did all of this, Chase.
Yeah, well, that's why I want nothing to do with London anymore. I mean, I see it, and it's just everything.
Well, there are
With Rupert
enemies.
Murdoch, and yeah,
The family shouldn't even be king. King
Well-
James is my cousin. I should be king, but I don't want to live there.
I mean, I'm learning more and more in the last couple of years about how really we're the bad guys, and also London, England as well. But they want to paint us, oh yeah, join the military, do this and that, serve your country. But now look at everything we're doing. I mean, we're supporting the wrong people.
Jace, the detective on my wife Victoria, my third murdered wife, the detective is Mrs. Holt. Do you know who Mrs. Holt is?
Mm, I mean, we've talked about Lester
That's
Holt. And,
Sonny and Cher. Cher's mother is Mrs. Holt,
oh, okay.
and they never filed a murder report. Oh, and Sonny was mayor of some city in California or Nevada or somewhere. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Well,
so
there's-
was my wife. Her father was mayor of East Detroit, where you got all the rock and roll from.
And
Yeah.
try
No
to pay
money.
try to pay attention to how many times you see a Sheriff Holt or a Detective Holt on TV shows. I've seen it several times now.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they're making fun of murdering my wife.
That's what they
And-
do.
And the military is supposed to be backing my federal licenses, and they don't. And I have more than one federal license. I got a whole bunch of them, and they don't protect any of them. And it's trillions of dollars. Look at Hollywood. Look at the video I and Greg made about Hollywood, Jace.
But then you got guys like Danny DeVito or whoever who just makes it
They're
easy because they,
they're still taxing my mother, and my mother's been dead for 30 years on property she owned but never knew she owned under the Hollywood sign. And it's gays doing it, Jace.
we know how bad Hollywood is. It's
Just like Chelsea Manning, who you
Yeah.
got from CBS, and Major Tom Garrett. Major Tom Garrett gave you that story. And when he murdered my attorney and my wife was murdered, CBS put him on the takeout. Remember, he got a new job on the takeout and a raise.
that's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, they murdered my family, and my family founded America. And then they give each other raises after they murder my family and steal my money. And
Well, I'm gonna have to get to bed here soon, Hugh. So we should probably wrap
well,
it up.
say good night.
Okay. Well, you
I
guys
don't
have
know,
a good night.
Jace. Why doesn't the military back my federal licenses? They're supposed to.
Yep.
See you later.
Bye.
All right. See you, Greg.
Bye.